NBC News has confirmed tonight that Donald Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, is now willing to cooperate with Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller, and specifically can tell the Special Prosecutor that Donald Trump is lying when he says he did not have advanced knowledge of the meeting with Russians in Trump Tower during the presidential campaign. Michael Cohen is willing to tell the Special Prosecutor that Donald Trump Jr. told candidate Donald Trump about the meeting with Russians before the meeting happened. President Trump has repeatedly denied knowing about the meeting before it happened. Here's the president in an interview with the New York Times last year.
I didn't look at it very closely, to be honest with you. Okay. I just heard there was an email requesting a meeting or something, requesting a meeting, that they have information on Hillary Clinton. And I said, I mean, that's standard political stuff.
Did you know at the time that they had the meeting?
No, I didn't know anything about them.
But you know, you gave us.
It must have been a very important, must have been a very unimportant meeting because I never even heard about it.
No one told you a word, nothing. I know we talked about this in the plane a little bit, but nobody.
No, nobody told me. I didn't know that. It was a very unimportant, sounded like a very unimportant meeting.
Donald Trump Jr. told the Senate Judiciary Committee that he never discussed the meeting with his father before or after the meeting. He told the committee, quote, "No, I wouldn't have wasted his time with it. I never discussed it with him at all." Here's what Donald Trump Jr. had to say about that meeting on Fox News.
Did you tell your father anything about this?
No. It was such a nothing. There was nothing to tell. I mean, I wouldn't have even remembered it until you start scouring through the stuff. It was literally just a wasted 20 minutes, which was a shame. Joining us now, Mimi Rocah, former federal prosecutor, Tim O'Brien, executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion and the author of Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald. And Mika Owyang is with us. She's a former staff director of the House Intelligence Committee. And Mimi, to you, you're a former federal prosecutor of the Southern District of New York, where the Michael Cohen case is currently proceeding, whatever that case is. Your reaction to what we've learned tonight and the way we've learned it?
So, a couple of different things. There's still a lot we don't know, as you and Rachel were discussing. We don't really know where this information is coming from. And why does that matter? If Michael Cohen is the source of this information coming out, then that's very bad for Michael Cohen's future as a cooperator. So if he is the one putting it out there, it's not just that it's out there, but if he's the one actually putting it out there, that is going to hurt his ability to be a cooperator because the government isn't going to trust him as easily. There's so many reasons why. However, if it is not coming from him and anyone associated with him, if he's not authorizing this information to come out, but it's coming from Trump, Giuliani, and some weird plot to try and diminish Cohen as a cooperator, it doesn't. It will not. In other words, the fact that the information is out there in the world, in the ether, does not take away, as Chuck said on Rachel's show, does not take away the fact that the government needs to prove this. You know, we all learn things and we think we know them, and we know them in a certain sense. The government has to know it as in a factual sense, in a provable sense. And the way to do that is through evidence, and witnesses are one form of evidence. So they need a witness who can go into court or in an affidavit, whatever form this ends up taking, and swear to this, essentially. And it wouldn't be the only piece of evidence. They would never rely on just one person's testimony. They would need to corroborate it from perhaps other witnesses, as Rachel mentioned, who were there, or, you know, we don't know. There could be a whole host of other ways to corroborate this if it's true. So all of that is to say that how this impacts the Michael Cohen going forward part depends how this did come out. And it really matters in terms of, this is important news for sure, but in terms of the criminal liability for the president, it does matter, as you know, we've been saying now since that Cohen recording came out. It matters even more whether Michael Cohen cooperates, because they do need, I mean, this is yet another sign of what he could offer the government, but he needs to do that in meetings, one-on-one with the government, you know, not in public.
One thing we know about the president, especially in the earlier stages of this investigation, is that he very much wanted to continue to talk to, communicate with pretty much everyone involved. There are reports of him trying to continue to communicate with Flynn, for example, even after Flynn had to be fired from the White House and before he was indicted. It is very common, certainly for people who are in the focus of an FBI investigation, of a federal investigation, and who know they are as a group in that focus, it is very common for them to want to try to communicate with each other. Their lawyers, their defense lawyers, are always telling them, don't say a word to any of the other witnesses. Donald Trump still has those impulses. This could be, if you're looking at it from what's the Trump's side incentive for letting this become public. One is the knowledge that it is going to become public. They're certain it's going to become public. And the other is, this is a way for Donald Trump to communicate with other witnesses, specifically the other witnesses who were in the room with Michael Cohen and Donald Trump Jr. And it's a way of getting the word out to them that we are denying whatever Michael Cohen says happened in that room.
Yes, I mean, I guess that could be a possible motive for them to put it out there. It's not very effective, though, right?
No,
I mean, as you say,
it's really messy.
Yeah. I mean, there's no good theory that I can think of for them to put it out there.
That's the best I could do.
No, and it's a good theory. It's better than I could come up with. Just like with the recording, when people were saying that's coming from the Trump side, I didn't see a world in which that was good for him unless it was to avoid the the crime fraud finding by a judge. But yes, I mean, and the reason that people tell witnesses not to talk is because you can be accused of some kind of witness tampering.
Yes.
And from the government side, the reason the government, I agree with something Chuck just said as well, that it is bad for the government that the information is out there. I just want to make the distinction between what isn't great and the government's not happy about versus will hurt Michael Cohen's chances of being a cooperator. And the reason the government doesn't like the information out there is for that same reason, that if information's out there now, other potential witnesses know what one witness is going to say, and you want your witnesses to be sort of in with blinders on. They only know what they know from their experience, not what they've heard from other people. It's a very important part of their testimony being accepted by a jury or whoever the fact finder is. So, no one's going to be happy about this on the government side. But again, I do think there's a lot of misinformation out there, apparently, at least on the Trump side, that this will diminish or hurt Michael Cohen's chances of being a cooperator. That's only true if he's the one putting it out there.
Tim O'Brien, you are our Trump world expert. You know Donald Trump. You know Michael Cohen. You've dealt with them up close, both of them. You've had contentious exchanges with them. You've been sued by Donald Trump. You've won against Donald Trump in court. One of the explanations that is always possible in Trump world or in Cohen world is this is just the nutty outcome that you get in Trump world or Cohen world.
Well, nutty's a generous term, Lawrence. These are not sophisticated people. A number of them are charitably described as stupid, and you see this random behavior around that. I think for viewers watching this, to unbundle some of this, in the summer of 2016, Donald Trump Jr. takes a meeting in Trump Tower with Russians who are offering to give him dirt on Hillary Clinton that could help Donald Trump Jr.'s father in his campaign. No one knows about that meeting until the spring of 2017 when the New York Times begins reporting on it. And when they do, the Trump family puts out a cover story. They say the meeting was about adoption policy in Russia. That slowly unravels, and ultimately they have to admit, because there's emails showing it, that the meeting was about gathering compromise and dirt on Hillary Clinton. The person dictating, and no one's ever denied this, the cover story was Donald Trump on a campaign jet or Air Force One with other people around him, including Hope Hicks and Ivanka Trump. And Michael Cohen clearly had knowledge of this. He's now put out there that he believes the president knew about the meeting and dissembled about it. He won't be the only person someone like Bob Mueller relies upon to present evidence to a jury. Ivanka Trump is likely to get pulled into this. Hope Hicks is likely to get pulled into this. And the issue here is, what did the president know, and when did he know it, and was he part of obstruction of justice?
And Mika Oyeng, given all of these possibilities, what do you see might be any criminal liabilities or legal liabilities that the president himself has to worry about? We've already identified a real problem for Donald Trump Jr. here if his testimony to Congress can be shown to be untrue.
Right. So if this is true, the president's foreknowledge that the Russians were actually offering to help him changes the character of a number of statements that he made throughout the campaign and really heightens the case for obstruction of justice. Because his tweets about Hillary's emails that followed the same day as this meeting, his statements in July where he looked directly at the camera and asked the Russians to hack her emails, if he knew that they were in fact making that offer, then he could have been trying to communicate with them out in the clear to direct them as to what he wanted and what he was looking for in terms of Russian help. Now, that would make a case of cooperation with the Russians, of coordination, and when he keeps yelling no collusion, it's hard for him to continue to make that claim if he knew the Russians were willing partners before he started asking for their help.
Let's listen to what Rudy Giuliani said earlier tonight when this story broke about Michael Cohen. Let's listen, and why Michael Cohen should not be believed.
I expected something like this from Cohen. He's been lying all week. I mean, he's been lying for years.
He's been lying for years, which makes this an irresistible piece of tape to run about Donald Trump telling us that he has the best people.
We've got the best people.
I know the best people.
We're going to use our best people. The best people.
The best people. I know guys that are so good.
And so now, Mimi, the Donald Trump defense is my best people have been lying for years. The lying for years is what Rudy Giuliani now says about Michael Cohen.
Right. And that's going to be that is a classic sort of defense strategy. Whenever you have a cooperator, which he's not yet, but that's sort of the posture we're in, who has damaging information about someone, the lawyers go after his credibility. And there's a couple of things. First of all, as you're sort of pointing out, Donald Trump is the one who picked Michael Cohen, right? He picked him as his lawyer, and he picked him as his lawyer because he does underhanded things.
Yes.
With and for Donald Trump is really sort of where this is going. And for him to now turn that around and say, well, he's lying about me. Look, the government is going to be skeptical of Michael Cohen. If he cooperates with him, the government is not going to take at face value. Michael Cohen walk in the door, they write it down and say, oh, okay, now we're going to the grand jury. That's not how it works. It's a process, and it is someone, especially like Michael Cohen, who they know has been an underhanded lawyer who records clients and does things like that. That's exactly why he has valuable information, but they're never going to rely on him alone. If there's things that they can corroborate, I mean, cases are built by the government all the time on what would otherwise be untrustworthy people, frankly. Mm-hmm. That's the world that criminals deal in.
Rudy Giuliani has done it himself. And Tim O'Brien, tonight, Rudy Giuliani, his entire defense was you can't believe someone who's a liar. And whenever they go to court, no one believes them. Rudy Giuliani's own office made deals with mafia murderers to testify against other mafia murderers, and the jury decided to believe Rudy Giuliani's mafia murderers against the ones who were the defendants who were charged. Rudy Giuliani's pretending that courtrooms haven't lived with this challenge forever.
Well, and Rudy Giuliani knows better, Lawrence. He ran the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. He began his career as a mob prosecutor. He knows what the burdens of proof are. He knows what federal prosecutors need to do when they want to bring a solid case in front of a jury. But he's not acting like a lawyer right now. He's out there to run interference for the president because there's a mounting fact pattern that doesn't look good for them on a number of fronts. They're now having issues around financial problems, the way they structured payments to paramours of the president. They have issues around obstruction of justice. They have issues around collusion. And I think Rudy Giuliani was brought in to try to discredit the media and discredit law enforcement that is trying to assess what has occurred with this president because it's getting very ugly.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.